All right, Caleb, let's take a look at your essay starting with your introduction. So, your question that you start with your hook is not the greatest, but not the worst either. So, a lot of times I'm seeing a lot of essays that are like, should mercy killing be legalized? But I think you can frame this question in a way that draws attention away from why does this exist, and to kind of have that existential component is you can ask, why do some deem mercy killing mercy killings as an ethical thing to do? Because this, I still don't like the question, but if you're going to lead in with this, I think this is a little bit better because you address your opposition and look at kind of tie in that ethical component. Why do some seem it's ethical? Because that at least gets your reader thinking about, okay, well, here could be why, here could be why, and then they can kind of think for themselves whether or not they agree with that. And then here, these are kind of sentences, get rid of them in all your essays. We will go over this topic. Nope, goodbye. You don't need to talk about it. All you need to do instead is just to introduce what mercy killing is, which is what you have here, which is good. Mercy killing, also known as assisted suicide, is an act of murder, which are it should be which is usually to end the life of a person suffering from severe pain or a terminal illness. So what I've added in here is you are missing some words. You have some punctuation concerns with that comma, because what the assisted suicide is that's what we call an interrupter, and it interrupts by giving information that's not necessary for the article as a whole. Like, we still know what mercy killing is. We don't necessarily need to know all the boom, 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 all these different names for it. Right here, you technically have a fragment. An individual who's tormented by a disease and want to end their life. This should be wants. This is a singular noun, so you need this plural verb. And what you could probably say is patients who receive mercy killings are usually an individual who is tormented by disease. This gives more context to who it is. You can't start your sentences with but because it's a coordinating conjunction and has to go in the middle of two independent clauses. What I've told a lot of people is just get rid of the word but and use however. However, they cannot perform the mercy killing by themselves. And then this needs a little bit more context here, which is probably mercy killing is done by a medical professional in most cases. Okay, you want to clarify who that is because you say they can't do it by themselves. Then clarify who is doing it. And then your last thing is the start for a thesis, but it needs to be stronger because of this word and. Assisted suicide is legal and it's unethical, which is a little bit weird because you use the word and, it's almost implying that because it's unethical, it's legal. So what you could say is that in the United States, despite its legal status in a few states, because it's only a few states that have it legalized, you could say in the United States, despite its legal status in a few states, mercy killing is unethical because of A, whatever that is, and B. So this, what I did is I reworded a few things, and I think that's the main thing with your essay and your intro is I retweaked a few things, reworded them, and rearranged a few things here and there to add context. I think mostly what it came down to is you were missing some context here that you needed some words with, but that is okay. All right, so moving on to your body paragraph, instead of saying the first incident, you need to specify what you mean by the first incident. You can come right out the gate and say, one example of a mercy killing comes from the 2005 Time article. That gives you a topic sentence, but that also says that because that's your topic sentence, your whole paragraph is probably going to be about that in some way in production. Fort Lauderdale, yep, this is right. So all of this is evidence, which is fine. And then, let's see. And here we go. So we have some analysis, but you're very informal with, okay, we don't know what this man's reasoning was for shooting his wife, and you want to avoid... Ooh, hold on. Okay. I'm not sure if that showed through, but I had to pause because Miss Marshall gave an announcement during my prep hour. So, instead of saying the first incident, as I talked about, you could just say, one example of a mercy killing is from the 2005 Time article, and then maybe just specify what it is. Quality of mercy killing. I don't remember what the rest of it is, so I'm going to leave it there, whatever it is. Okay, then you explain this, and then this is where we get informal. Okay, we don't know what this man's reasoning was for shooting his life. And you also have a contraction there. You do not want contractions spell out every single word. What you can say is, however, the motives behind the man's mercy killing are unclear. Which, actually, you know what? I'm going to stop. I'm not even going to agree with that because it does say he does give evidence why he does it. So what you can say instead is, however, we do not know the intentions or decision. However, we do not know the intentions of the mercy killing on whether or not it was what his wife wanted. And then the rest is okay. The article insinuates, instead of makes it sound like, you want a better word there, insinuates that the man did not even know if that is what his wife wanted. She was suffering, yes, but that doesn't give, and you want to say him, give him the right to shoot her without her consent. Because when you say you right there, you're implying that the reader is this person, and that's not what it is. In this case, it is just murder no matter what the man's intentions were. So this is actually a pretty good paragraph if you think about it and retweak it a little bit. So you have the evidence, you have a little bit of analysis that talks about what it is. To tie it specifically back into why it's unethical, you literally one sentence. This killing is unethical because it did not value the wife's life. Wife's life, it was the man's decision, not even necessarily her own. Even though this hinges a little bit on hypotheticals, you are right. This was killing done very briefly. It was not done by a medical professional, so it's off to an okay start. Okay. All right, here we go. Another instance of this article accord. I think you mean occurred, which is a very different word. So let me go back to Microsoft Word. Occurred. Sorry, two C's. OCCURRED. Talk about the father was in a coma before he shot her. Here's again. Whenever you have a question in your body paragraph, don't ask it and just replace it with an answer. You can literally tie this into analysis and just say, actually, I don't think she was in a coma when he shot her. Hold on a second. Let me double check the article. Okay, so I did check and I was wrong there, so that's fine. Here, make sure you have this her. You have the wrong pronoun here because you talk about her in specific. You kind of switch back and forth between pronouns, which isn't the greatest because you go from specific examples, but then you integrate it almost as if it's a generic thing that can happen to everyone. But overall with this, you have evidence, but here again, what I tell everyone is if you have something in your body paragraph where you are asking a question, just answer it. And like I did before where we integrated more analysis into your previous body paragraph, that would work better. So you could say here is, you know, it's not known, even though there was a freak accident, there is still the possibility of someone waking up from a coma, right? So you have this here, he doesn't know if he was going to decide to give up on her. You know, there could be some better ways. You just need some more analysis that talks about the other options. We cannot, this is one word, have murder every time someone feels sorry for a loved one in pain. Even though your intentions might be good, you don't have the right to kill them. All of this is pretty good to summarize it, but the problem is you don't have a paragraph that acknowledges the opposing side. So that is something to be aware of. And then in your conclusion, some people try to justify mercy killing with the misconception that the motive or reason for this is good. And this is what we talked about. I think this is the sentence that is taken from somewhere else. Typically, the thing is you only want to take 3 words from an essay. And there are some people who are taking like few choice words, which I think is better than taking a whole idea from intro and conclusion. So I think one of them is about whether or not life is infinite, the finite parameters of it. And you talk about how it's murder. Would you want to live knowing that you ended their life when they still had a chance to live? Either way, it's not our choice to decide who is too sick. You need TOO and needs to die. If that's what they want, then they can pull the trigger. This is actually a really strong way to end your paragraph, because you do end it with, even though this is a contraction, if that's what they want, then they can pull the trigger, because that kind of stopped me for a second, because it's kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just a very interesting way to end the paper, because then you kind of think, you know, I think what it is a lot of times we look at mercy killing and be like, oh, this won't happen to us. And even when I think about my grandparents who had passed away, like, yes, and I'm just using this example. I'm sorry that I'm using this anecdote, but for example, because you're talking about pulling the trigger, that has a lot of powerful words to it than pulling the plug. Because I think of my grandpa who had cancer, I think of my grandpa who had seizures, who had passed away when I was in middle school, and then thinking about like everything they go through, that's a very powerful statement for even me to think about whether or not I agree with mercy killing. It really got me to think, like, okay, well, we think about pulling the plug in one way, then I think a lot of times we pull the plug if that comes to it. But what about actually letting someone die by injecting something into them? So that's actually a really, really thoughtful way of ending your paper, and I appreciate that. I think you just need to add more info to the conclusion. And when it comes to your body paragraphs, I think you need to tweak your analysis, because you have some good things there, but overall, I think you're just missing a few things here and there by asking the questions and whatnot. So hopefully this makes sense if you choose to do a rewrite or when we move on to our next essay.